After Akaza had left that night, I'd fallen back into deep sleep, which, in the end, only felt like 5 minutes before I woke up with the sound of the front door opening again. My instincts went off like alarms as my body woke up, and I reached for my blades, only to remember that I'd been stripped of them when Akaza had aided my wounds. I gritted my teeth, despite the fact that he'd helped me, and tried to sit up on my own. Plus, I was beginning to grow agitated. I was itching to get up and do something again, and if I were to guess, I'd say it's probably been about 2 or 3 days since my fight with demons. Once I still had a very difficult time wrapping my head around the fact, especially because it provided multiple times that what Akaza had claimed about demons was true. Not only that, because in my gut, I believed him. The door to the bedroom opened by the time I was preached into my elbow, trying to lift the cloth that was patched around my wound. I froze upon seeing the tattooed demon halting my movements. "Welcome back," I said before continuing to reach for my bandages. Suddenly, his hand was on my wrist, stopping me once more from examining my thigh. He didn't grab me roughly, to my surprise, but it was enough to stop me and lift my gaze to meet his eyes. He had a frown upon his face. "Actually, I can't leave you for more than a few hours without you ruining your chances of healing," I scoffed, breaking our eye contact and pulling my hand away. "Yeah, well, I guess I'm just bored." I collapsed back onto my makeshift bed amongst the tiny room. Plus, why would a demon like you care so much for my well-being? It was the question I had been meaning to ask him, along with about a million others. But it was better than to go step by step at a time. He didn't answer me. Instead, he only smiled, getting up and moving over to his table once again. "I've already told you," he said without looking at me. "Also, you're welcome." I glanced, not answering. Akaza looked at my questioned gaze and smiled. "I took care of all the mess for you." "Huh? What mess?" A sigh. "Aside from protecting you from the other demons as well as fixing your leg, I also went to clean up the bodies of those you left behind out in the forest." I sat up, rolling my eyes as what seemed like his attempt at bargaining before a question nagged at me. "How did you?" A sudden flash of pink, and he was mere inches away from my face once again, a smile on his lips as he tilted his head. "Can't you already guess?" I stared into his lidded eyes, our breaths mingling for a moment. "Right. How do I put this? He ate them." I swallowed, looking down at his lips, pulled back into an unusual grin, the smile he always had unless he was either annoyed or focused. But staring at his mouth, I began to imagine what it would be like to have him eat me the same way. He must have been able to read my mind somehow, for he stopped my thoughts with a slight tilt of my chin upwards with the tip of his finger, casting my gaze back to his. "I'm not going to eat you, Yin." I felt my body grow hot at the closeness, and I had to shy away before his glowing eyes once more. Something about being so close to him made my entire body light up with sets of alarms, and I had no idea why. The power I could sense with a mere glance, it was enough to remind me of what happened a few days ago. He was really a demon. And all of this, he was doing because he had an offer for me, yet still hasn't told me what it is, simply because I haven't asked him. He was waiting for me to feel ready somehow. "Akaza," I said, looking down at my leg. "What is your offer?" Akaza had not been expecting her to ask so soon, even though he'd been planting the idea into her mind for a while now. It was like a seed he kept watering, and her curiosity only grew with it. His face fell with her words, surprise taking over him once more, his brows raised. "You want to know now?" he asked her. Her eyes flickered and Akaza scanned them, trying to figure out how this conversation might go, knowing that he wouldn't be able to tell her anything regardless of his offer. He hid that thought behind a smile as Yin then nodded. Yeah, I do, she breathed. Well, Yin, he admitted, you have quite the admirable strength. A pause. It was impressive for a mere human. Now, that's coming from a demon of higher rank like me. A grin from him. She didn't say anything, her eyes never leaving his. Akaza continued. You have so much you could be capable of doing with that strength. You could become... He was hesitant for a moment. Stronger. Her eyes lit up with a sense of confusion, but also realization. Your offering is to make me stronger? She said, not entirely a question, but the demon nodded away. She frowned, brows furrowing together. How could you possibly make me stronger? Akaza again slightly laughed, shifting his position into a more comfortable one. You would come with me, he said, meeting her gaze once again. To train? Yin stared at him, opening her mouth to say something, but then deciding against it as she broke their eye contact. Akaza didn't push. He had to bite around the bullet and the amount of information he was allowed to leak, but he figured that an offer to train her and make her stronger. He knew she would take it, but it would have to be on her own wanting. That's what makes her do it. Her own motivation. And so the demon watched her mind swirl with thoughts. Then, you came here to offer me this? But why? She asked, looking back at him. Why the hell would you want to try and train me? Akaza sighed inwardly, knowing he wouldn't be able to get her to agree blindly without a good reason. He smiled to hide his annoyance. Getting her angry was possibly not going to help him convince her. Because, he stated, I can see it in your eyes, Yin. His voice dropped into a lower octave, his smile growing. You not only want strength, you need strength. Her posture shifted as she glanced down at her injured thigh, eyes flickering with conflict once again. I don't know why you want it, but all I know is that you do. You crave it, the same way I do. Akaza leaned forward, bringing his face close to hers as he crouched with his elbow on his knee. You are the same as me, Yin. A pause where she met his eyes once more. So why don't you do everything you can to gain that strength? She was considering it. Akaza could tell by the way she wasn't breaking their gaze. She wanted strength. It was her main goal, the same goal Akaza had. However, he still didn't know why. Train with me, Yin, and I promise that you will be able to fend off any demon. And you and I, we can finally have a fair fight. At least that part was true. His words were getting to her. She knew based on the way she looked at her thigh, still wrapped in bandages, her jaw locked, tightening in what most be memories of what had happened a few days ago. Without looking at him, she opened her mouth to speak. Before I met you, she began, before I knew what demons were, I used to believe I could take on anything or anyone. She let out a sigh. I used to believe that being an assassin of my ranking was the top, that I was unbeatable. The young assassin looked at him, and a different set of emotions in her eyes appeared. But then I fought you, and it was the first time I felt completely helpless. Akaza only watched her speak. I was useless, and it was the first time I had lost in what felt like an entire decade. She gritted her teeth, anger beginning to hone her words before she tried to calm herself down. And you're right, she admitted, clutching her fist, looking at the way her nails digged into her palm. I do need to be stronger. And I could think about my loss and swallow in self-pity if that's what I choose. She wasn't done, but Akaza smiled at what he knew was coming. She could feel the blood stinging from her palm. But that isn't something I would do. I know it isn't. The demon finally spoke, getting back but walking over to the table once more. Silence fell between them, only a cold breeze flickering with a single candle that was always lit. Akaza, she said, and the demon paused. What he was doing was notice the change in the tone of her voice. He looked towards her once again, seeing her sitting up, her back roamed straight with determination. I don't know why you were following me, or whatever sort of test that fight was, to see whether I was worthy for you to train. But I know what I am. Akaza stared at her, tilting his head with a smile. That's exactly why I decided to fight you, he said, and she frowned slightly. What do you mean? Akaza let out a deep breath, scratching his arm. I fought you because I already knew you were worthy. Physical strength? You are hardly at a demon's level yet. But your mentality? I couldn't think of a single human with such power. Her brow raised, eyes widening ever so slightly at his words. Akaza laughed. I don't fight women or eat them. Before Yin could open her mouth to speak, he continued. But I admire strength more than anything else. The sense of strength gives me a whole other sort of enthusiasm. The demon looked towards the assassin. And you, Yin, have the capability to become an equal in strength compared to me. He couldn't tell her anything, but at least what he was saying was true. He refused to take on women, out of mere respect, but he also respected those who were strong. And this assassin? It was because he respected her that he decided to take her on a fight, because she was worthy of becoming his equal, which was so rare in humans. Her voice interrupted his thoughts. I'll do it. Akaza took a look forwards. I'll train with you, she said. Pure determination sat in her eyes. Make me stronger, Akaza. Make me as strong as you. He couldn't contain his grin, teeth revealing as his body lit up with excitement. He didn't care if she was a woman or not. This was going to be fun. He stood up, hands on his hips. Then let's get started, he yelled with excitement.